It definitely is a small town. I love it, especially, you know, with what we've gone through. We've had such good community support with us, but you know a lot of people in town, and it's a small high school.
Mom will tell you that John watched us from a corner tussle, but Mom didn't see John instigating and getting us. John was much smarter than us, and he knew how to get us to break the rules, and he knew how to get Mom to walk in at the right time. And it just happened all the time. We wouldn't see it coming, and we'd be fighting or swinging a baseball bat at each other, and Mom would walk in, and John would just be in the corner laughing.
John was always the kid that he would stand back and smile and like watch the other boys tussling in school. He was a quiet, funny kid. If he thought something was funny, he would giggle about it the rest of the day. A real deep thinker.
His sister, oldest sister, always got pretty mad at him because he wouldn't study, but he still did better than she did on grades. You know, and that just irked her in no time.
He liked school, but he didn't like doing homework. He thought after school was his time. He finished in the top 10% of his class and should have been higher, but when you do your homework in the hallway, then and still can graduate top 10, I guess you're doing pretty well.
His reaction after 9/11 was very telling. I remember we were actually sitting in this room right here, and we were playing video games the day that it happened, and just seeing his reaction and how solemn it made him and how serious he took that attack on our country. It wasn't a light I had seen him in before. I was surprised, just more because I figured he was going to go to a top-tier college and become an engineer or something.
He took that decision very seriously. He knew that it wasn't if you were going to be deployed, it was going to be when you would be deployed, so he knew what he was getting into. Oh, I was very proud of him. You know, less than 2% of our population goes into the service, and appreciate those people that do make that, hear the call of their country.
I didn't really want him to because of the way things were going, but I supported him on it all the way.
Well, he was stationed over in Korea, and at that point in time, he had told me that he liked being in the military, but he wanted to be an officer. He was enlisted at that point in time. He sent in his application, got the nomination, and was accepted to West Point to the class of 2008. And it was 12 to 14 days before he was supposed to come home to get ready to go to West Point that his unit got word that they were being deployed to Iraq. And unbeknownst to us, he decided to stay with his unit. West Point was very good about saving a slot for him for the following year. The graduation ceremony was beautiful. Again, a lot of pomp and circumstance to that. My sister and her daughters came. My other kids were all there. His dad was there, Darren. It was a wonderful week. And he was stationed at Fort Campbell. And he hadn't been at Fort Campbell long before they got word that then they were deploying to Afghanistan.
I was pretty much accepted the fact that, you know, it was what it was. And again, that was his choice. I didn't want to interfere with his choices and whatnot. He sounded okay. And I asked him, I says, "You gotta make it to Brent's wedding," which is his youngest brother. He goes, "I won't miss it for the world."
But he'd been there 3 months. I was getting ready for school. It was about 6:30 in the morning. I remember exactly what I had on. It was a little cool, so I had a light leather jacket on. And I heard tires in somebody driving in the alley. The houses share an alley, and I thought it was my neighbor Bruce, just somebody going to Bruce's house. He has a lot of people come and go. And I thought somebody was just coming to Bruce's house. And then I heard a knock on the door, on my door. My front door is glass. And I saw the two uniformed officers there, one being the chaplain and one was a major. And I knew exactly what they were there for. And in my mind, I was just thinking, if I don't answer that door, they can't tell me that my son's dead. And I just wanted to sit down and not move. And when I answered the door, I don't remember what the major said, I remember his voice cracking as he was telling me that First Lieutenant John Runkle, and like I said, I don't remember what he said. And they wouldn't leave. I asked them if I could, if I could have some time alone. And they said they would do that after somebody was here with me. So I ended up calling Becky and asked her to give me an hour so I could call his brothers and sister and tell them what happened.
Just getting home from work, and the Army was sitting in my driveway. And I'll go up, I'm like, oh no. And my wife says, well, maybe you just got hurt. I said, no, that's not how it works.
I was driving on 670 right outside of Columbus, and my mom called, and when I answered, she said, Corey, John Jay's been killed. I could tell you right where I pulled over on 670. The next couple minutes were a blur. I made it back to my college house and made it back home, but hearing those words, it's an echo every once in a while that it gets you out of nowhere. But
it is hard to talk about it, but there is healing in it. Each one of these events I do at West Point has named 2 different trainings after John, and I've been able to go back up there for both of them. And we want them to be remembered. I think the worst thing would be if they were forgotten. So I need to do my part.
John was a combat veteran before he went to West Point, and after West Point, when he chose to go back into the infantry and chose to go into the Rangers and earn his Ranger tab, he knew what he was signing up for. And I think that kind of bravery and that kind of selflessness is something that if we could all take a page from that playbook, we would just be much better off. He had no inclination to think about himself in that time. He thought about our society and our family and our country.
Went to Dover to welcome the remains home. As soon as we hit the highway, there were supporters with their hands over their hearts, and the veterans were saluting. I mean, it was like that from Mansfield all the way to West Salem.
As patriotic as John was, he was also just a very wise person, and he would know that he was fighting for people's rights to their own beliefs and opinions. So it was very rare that I would get him to speak on those kinds of topics and really gauge his honest, true feelings, because he just let people be people. It is frustrating when you see a blatant lack of respect. That's obviously enough to infuriate you, but honoring someone else's difference of opinion is what makes this country great.
First off, I think John was a soldier's soldier, and he was the most humble person I've ever met. And it sounds silly, but I would like to be like my son. I would like to have that character quality.